Good morning, everyone. My name is Liz McCreish, and this morning, along with Andrew and Kelsey, we'll be showing you how you can kind of integrate analytics into your business. First, Andrew and I are going to kind of go through and show difference between business intelligence and analytics, as Trevor alluded to, and we'll show you some of the SAS tools that are out there. A little bit of an audience participation to make sure everyone's still awake. Looking at analytics within your business, we've kind of got a kind of a sliding scale here from level 1, where it's basically very little analytics use, to level 5, where it's really embedded across your whole business with kind of different kind of levels in between. So if we start from the top end, who here would actually raise their hand and say that they think their company is level 5, analytics is everywhere? Okay, a couple of hands. Level 4, so it's a bit more strategic, so it's kind of not everywhere but in certain key areas. Okay, a few more. Level 3, a bit more ad hoc, so as and when it's needed. A lot more hands. Level 2, kind of mission critical only, maybe when it's just forecasting. Okay. And level 1, limited use. Okay. So quite a broad range of experiences here. And I think we find that a lot with a lot of our customers. Certain industries seem to have certain departments which are very much embedded in analytics. Head of analytics practice, and I can't say analytics, it keeps getting me. And it means that what we're seeing, different industries have different departments that are very in depth with analytics. But in other industries and some of our customers, it's very just brand new, and they're actually starting to educate their managers so they can start to spot these opportunities and see where it can be used to make better business decisions. As Trevor mentioned, between BI and analytics, no matter who you talk to, if you ask for a definition, you'll get probably 10 different answers. And it's because that is that sliding scale. So if we kind of start from our reports, queries and visualizations, I think traditionally that's where business intelligence has been positioned. If we go into more forecasting and kind of statistical modelling, that's what we view kind of analytics or advanced analytics. But what we're actually seeing is kind of a blurring of those two areas. Most of the business intelligence vendors are now adding analytical capabilities into their tools, and the analytical vendors are adding more visualization. So we're seeing very much a crossover between the two. I don't know if people have seen, but the new Gartner Magic Quadrants came out last week. Has anyone had a chance to look at that? Okay. Not a lot of movement within the quadrants, we have to say. But we've got the two up here. We've got the BI and analytics, and then we've got the advanced analytics. And one thing you will see is that SAS is in the leader quadrant for both. So towards the end of last year, SAS launched a partner network. And when they approached us to join, we were delighted to accept, because we could see a real synergy between the BI and analytics work we've been doing in the past and the new tools that SAS have got available. So a little bit of background about SAS. It's been going about 40 years. Started out of a university in North Carolina. You see some of those stats there that most companies have got SAS within their business, either in small isolated pockets or in companies like banking and pharmaceutical companies. You see that really embedded in core processes. It's a privately owned company, so they're very much passionate about statistics and do a lot of investment in R&D. And Trevor mentioned like Hadoop and open source, they're kind of really ingrained and kind of getting innovative solutions in place. So the amount of time they spend or money they spend in R&D is typically twice as much as that in normal technology companies. A very simplified diagram here of the SAS landscape. The official slide has got about 40 different components to it, so I've just tried to kind of bring it down a little bit and simplify it. As you would expect, in terms of data sources, you can connect to all the usual things, so Oracle, SQL, text files. I've just highlighted a few here that are a bit more interesting, I think. So Salesforce we're going to cover in the next set, in one of the later sessions, so you can connect directly into Salesforce. Teradata, a big player, and a lot of our customers are using that, so there's direct connectors for that as well. Twitter, unstructured data, lots of text. SAS have got some great text mining tools that allow you to really get some value and understand what sentiment analysis, looking at fraud claims, things like that. You start analysing the text to try to pick up patterns and fraud. And Hadoop, as Trevor's mentioned, so again, that kind of big data space. With lots of data, you want to do lots of analytics on it. What many people mightn't be aware of as well, there's also a lot of data management tools available from SAS. So they've got great master data management. There's great data lineage, so you can kind of look at the propagation of your data throughout your systems and increase your confidence in the data quality. And with the DQ, data quality set of tools, you can also build in a lot of business rules to make sure you're getting the best data you can into your analytics process. And then at the front end, so Enterprise Miner is one of the more traditional SAS tools, so it's kind of deep dive analytics. You need to be able to understand what you're doing with the SAS code. But the two tools we're going to cover today are Visual Analytics and Visual Statistics. Visual Analytics is kind of aimed towards the end user, so no stats knowledge required, no programming language. Statistics takes it on a little step further, so there's more built-in models you can do. So you need to know a bit more about where you're getting yourself into, but it's not a full-blown data scientist. So to pick up on the BI and analytics continuum that Trevor mentioned, we've got our kind of broad user base and our experts. So the productionized BI is where we kind of see our reports and kind of things that are getting fed out to us. The ad hoc BI and analytics, more of our power user can go in, slice, dice, drill, and do some basic analysis. And then we've got our kind of statistical experts who really get under the hood. We see visual analytics at the kind of the top end, so it's the non-technical user. You can push that data, the reports out to a wide audience. And visual statistics is a bit more niche, so you don't need to be a hands-on programmer, but you do need to understand the models you're doing, be able to refine them and fine-tune them. So within SAS Visual Analytics, there are a few different components. Andrew will be demoing some of these later, but I just wanted to give you a high-level overview. Data Builder allows you to basically connect to different data sources, join it together, and do some calculations and manipulations. Administrator looks after your security. Explorer allows you to kind of delve into your data, do some ad hoc analysis, do lots of visualizations. It's also got a few built-in statistical options in there already for you. So you can do correlation matrices, decision trees, and some really nice visualizations that we'll show in a second. Designer is more for creating reports for end user consumption. So you can take your reports, combine them into dashboards, and have them available either on the web, mobile, or actually integrated into the Microsoft Office suite, into Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and SharePoint. Because it's got visual in the title, as you would expect, it's got a number of really nice visualizations you can use. Some of them look a little bit scary, I think, but when you actually see some of them in practice, it gives you a really nice way of looking at your data in a new way. And Andrew will demonstrate one or two of these later. I said visual statistics, it's a step on from visual analytics. So if we think of visual analytics as exploring your data and kind of interacting with it, visual statistics is much more around looking at the drivers of your data, trying to create some predictive models, fine-tuning, changing some of those levers in your business and seeing what the impact could be. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Andrew, who's actually going to do the interesting bit and let you actually see what you get.
Thank you, Liz. Good morning, I'm Andrew Kennedy. I'm a consultant with Thorogood, and hopefully now I'm just going to demo some of what's possible with visual analytics and visual statistics. First thing you'll notice is it's browser-based software. So I'm loading it up here. And this is the Visual Analytics Hub. This is the first place you land when you open the software. And you can see at the top I've got giant buttons to start creating my exploration or my report. I can access the data builder, and the create analytical model button will take me to visual statistics. The administrator component that Liz mentioned is accessed using one of the smaller buttons at the top. And there are a few more things I can do in there, including you've probably noticed that I've themed this with some of our branding. So that's possible as well. Across here we've got the recent reports that I've accessed. So I'll take you to one of those a bit later, but it's worth noting that I can also set up favorites. So if there are reports I'm accessing every day, every couple of days, I can set those up, and I can even set one of those as my home screen if there's one that I want to come to every time I use the software. If I take you to Visual Analytics Explorer, the first thing I want to show you is some of the forecasting capabilities of the tool. And to do that, I'm going to load in some sales data. Now you can see here Visual Analytics has brought up the categories and measures on the left-hand side. So this is how I bring my data into the chart. And when I drag these on, if I drag on month, and I want to forecast my sales value, it'll automatically choose the chart that I should be looking at for that. I could change that using the buttons at the top, but it's automatically chosen a line chart, and that's what I want to use to look at the forecast, so I'll confirm that. Like with most other tools, I can set filters. So if I put a filter on month, try and drag it to the right place. I can take out there was a slightly lower part at the start that made me think maybe that data is a bit dodgy. I can get rid of that. If I'm interested in a particular brand, maybe I'm the brand manager for the hair care products, let's see. What about Glossy? I can manage the Glossy brand, right? I'll bring that up, and it's filtering interactively, as you'd expect. To create a forecast, with the tool I just right-click and hit Show Forecast. Now SAS at this point will go away. It'll look at several available models, and it'll decide on the best one given the data that I've put in. So at this stage, it's giving me a simple linear model with a slight downward trend, you can see. That's not that advanced. It's probably something that can be done in a lot of the tools that we would show. But where Visual Analytics really comes into its own is when I want to add underlying factors. So I might expect that the forecast could be improved by looking at how I'm spending on marketing. And in this data set, I've split my marketing into five different types. And if I can select those here, I can drag those on and drop them in as underlying factors. At this point, again, SAS has gone away, and it's thought about what the model should be. It's checked a number of different options, and we've given it the option now of looking at these underlying factors to see whether they improve my forecast. So the line you can see at the top is the sales value. So that's the forecast that we had before, except now you can see it's no longer just a simple downward trend. SAS has decided that 3 of these 5 are helping it make its forecast. So it's selected placement, price, and promo. And those are shown over here. Again, it's gone away and forecasted each of those and used the history of those to try and tell me what the future of my sales might be. Now, as if that's not enough, maybe I know the plan for the future of my marketing spend, and maybe I want to put that in. And there's a little scenario analysis tool here. And what I can do with that is I can start dragging around the marketing spends and see how that affects my forecast. Now, just as a warning, because these are spends, they're put on the wrong way around. So when I start talking about increasing something and dragging it down, I haven't completely lost it. So yeah, I'm going to try increasing my placement spend. Maybe I know what the plan is for that. And I know that I'm consistently going to spend more on that this time around. And I can set the series value. I'll set all of those to be the same. And then when I hit apply, it takes those new values that I've put in and recalculates the forecast. So I don't know if you can see there's a light grey line where the forecast was previously. So that's without me influencing the model at all. That's where it would be. But now this new line, you can see, is slightly higher when I spend more. Alternatively, maybe I've got targets for a month, and I want to see what marketing spend I should be suggesting. Again, I can just drag up the value that I'm looking for, and the goal-seeking tool will calculate where I should be placing my marketing spend to best improve my chances of achieving that. If you want, you can enter the values in your table, if you know the exact values you're going for, and that will update the chart as well. Once I close out of that, I have the option to export this to CSV, and it will give me all the figures for the sales value and the three marketing spends that affect that. So if I want to share that back with my marketing team, suggest what they should be spending, I've got the numbers to go away and have that discussion. So that's the forecast. If I just close out of that, I want to spend the rest of the session showing you some of the other things that can be done in the tool. And for that, from now, I'm going to use motor insurance data. And in general, I'm going to be particularly interested in fraud cases. So they're obviously increasing the cost of premiums. I want to try and bring the cost of premiums down as much as possible, attract customers, and that's what we're going to be looking at. The first thing I want to do is look at the flow of a customer through the system. What different stages does a claim go through after I'm notified about it? And to do that, I'm going to use a Sankey diagram. To give you another typical use of this, it might be used to show users going through a website. So in web analytics, this is a type of chart that might be used quite often. I think the earliest example was of Napoleon's advance through Russia, showing where the army dropped off. But this might make more sense when I start to put things in the diagram and you can see how it builds up. Now what I put on this diagram is the claim stage, the date at which the customer entered that stage, and then the claimant ID, just to give that tie across between the different records. And you can see here this brings up my different stages in the process. If I just change the color here and make it slightly more attractive. Color by event. So you can see all of the claims start when I'm notified. From there, some are fast-tracked, and I can see from this diagram that everyone who's fast-tracked gets accepted. Other claims go to the summary review, so just a briefer review process. And from there, most are accepted, but I can see that some are rejected, and then some go for a fraud review. And those are probably the ones that I'm more interested in investigating at this point. So I can see how the claims have got to that stage in the process. And that's Visual Analytics Explorer. The next tool I want to take you into is the Designer, which is where I'd look at building dashboards for web and for mobile. And I'm just going to take you into a report that I've started to build earlier and show you some of the features there. Again, I'm going to be looking at the insurance data. And I've got a few visualizations built up here already. So you can see I've got visualizations that might be available in a number of other tools as well. We've got the bubble chart, we've got the mapping capabilities, and I've got a pie chart at the bottom. I've also got buttons at the top and a filter that I can use here on the right. So many ways to interact with these, and the reports I design here, like I say, can be used on web or they can be used on mobile, and they'll appear pretty much the same across both. Certainly all the features stay. The different charts I can build are shown on the left here. And if I scroll down, there's a few different map options at the bottom, and I can build gauges and word clouds as well. What I want to do at this point is add a time series plot to the dashboard and just show you how I would build up one of these visualizations. Make it slightly wider. At this point, if I switch to the data tab, again, I've got my categories at the top and my measures at the bottom. This time, I'm going to go for reported month, it's called. And claims amount. And drag those on. And that brings it onto the dashboard. And I can start building interactions between some of these charts. And again, the buttons and the filters at the top will apply to that chart. So that's Visual Analytics Explorer and Designer. And the mobile BI will just let me view that report. And that will work on iOS and Android. What I'm going to show you next is Visual Statistics, which is an add-on for Visual Analytics. And what I want to do from here is go back to the hub and create an analytical model. Again, I'm looking at my fraudulent cases, and I want to see if I can find out some way of looking at which cases are more worth investigating. If I load up the data. So again, here I've got several types of model. I could build a linear model. I can do logistic regression if I want to predict the probability of something happening. There's generalized linear model, and I can build a decision tree or do clustering. At the minute, I'm going to build a decision tree. And and I want to look at, not that one, I want to look at my fraud flag. Now here I can see it's a measure, and I want to use that as a category for the decision tree. So just switch that across, and it jumps up here. And I can drag it in and start building. At this stage, the dark green is showing my claims which aren't fraudulent, and there's a tiny yellow bar here, honestly it's yellow, that is showing the fraudulent cases. And I'm interested in how those split out. And I suspect that maybe claim type might be a good way to tell them apart. So if I drag that on, SAS will go away, it'll build a decision tree, it'll look at what the best splits are. And you can see here that cases with fire and theft as the type are giving me a much higher ratio of fraudulent cases, shown by the higher bar. I can see the total number in each bucket, and I can see how many of those, in this case it's showing me how many weren't fraudulent. If I want to drag on something else, so maybe I think, what about driver age, is that giving me anything? We can see if the driver age affects whether they're likely to make a fraudulent claim or not. You can see what it's giving me here is the colour tells me which is most likely for that group, and how full up it is showing me how many, what proportion fall into that category. At this point, I'm going to switch on the tree overview, just to allow me to zoom in slightly. And get back to that chart that I had before. So you can see here that we're splitting that fire and theft group, and within that fire and theft group, I can look at the driver age and see that I'm far more likely to have fraudulent claims from someone who's under the age of 40. If we go down to the next level, we then see that our most likely group to claim at this stage is drivers between the ages of 30 and 40. So very simply, I've been able to build up this decision tree in Visual Statistics. There are some options for decision trees in Visual Analytics, but it doesn't give me all the parameters and options that I've got within Visual Statistics. So here I could set many of the different options that you can have with a decision tree. So I've shown you Explorer first, Visual Analytics Explorer, where you can build up your visualizations. You can start to introduce the advanced analytics. I've shown you Designer, where you can build reports for web and for mobile. And finally, I've shown you Visual Statistics, which gives you a few more options than Explorer, but possibly at times will require slightly more knowledge as to what those parameters are. And at this stage, I'm going to hand back to Liz.
So hopefully, I know we've only touched on some of the capabilities of the two tools. There is a lot more to see. But hopefully it gives you an idea that SAS isn't necessarily just the SAS base and the coding statistical language, that there's a lot more out there for user-facing products. And yeah, so regardless of what level of statistical capabilities you've got, there's a tool that will be out there to suit your needs. So we started off with Visual Analytics. So this is your end user tool. As Andrew said, there is some inbuilt stats that we haven't had a chance to show you. If you'd like to see more about that, please let us know. But it is basically your wider user audience and no statistical knowledge needed. Visual Statistics is where you need to know a little bit more about what you're doing, because you can change some of those parameters and kind of really get under the hood of some of the models in there, and you've got a wider range of statistical models available for you. With VA as well, on the mobile BI, we've got an app. If anyone's interested, the coffee break, we can show you some of that functionality. The mobile BI means you can have your data all available offline, which is quite a nice feature. And that was all we're going to show you today. If you do want to know any more about the tools, please do come and talk to either Andrew or I at the breaks.